So spoiler-free thoughts. This was the like the Rashomon episode that they're talking about, which I thought was a really cool concept. I liked that like each of these episodes have a concept where like one of them was the Predator episode, and one of them was a Kurosawa movie, and like this one's like the whole we're looking at an event told from a different perspective, and it plays out differently than you thought it did, or that we have unreliable narrators.
Unreliable narrators or new revelations about things we already knew.
Yeah. I do wonder if this was the right place for it in the season.
Probably. I mean, thematically, based on what Soul said to May at the end of the previous episode, it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, I guess if you put it earlier in the season, you take some of the suspense out of the conflict between Saul and May.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Like this episode explains a lot about Soul's motivations.
Yeah, I'm still a Saul stan. I still love him, and I still think he does no wrong. But he's a little more unstable than I thought he was. There's some weird stuff that happens in this episode. We'll talk about it. We inched closer to a more appropriate episode length. This was a whopping 40 minutes, including the previously on and the credits, which compared to last week, which was 30 minutes.
They're technically like 44 and 35, but who's counting? Yeah.
Well, no, last week was 32 minutes, or the battle episode 5 was 32 minutes.
Okay.
It was an embarrassingly short amount of time for a show. It's because those two were meant to be one episode, I think. Yeah. So I appreciated that. There are some really cool, there's some really cool cinematography moments and some cool fights with a character that everyone. So this isn't too spoilery, but everyone there are a bunch of haters.
There's a shot in the trailers, right?
Yes.
Of Kalnaka swinging his lightsaber at Torben.
And everyone bitched, not everyone, but the people who bitched about when they find Kalnaka dead. They're like, oh, what a great way to waste a Wookiee Jedi. And it's like, how can you make a determination about this before you've seen only half of, or less than half of the show?
Yeah.
And I had seen that preview at that point, so I see all these comments, and it's like, you dumbasses, just be patient a little bit. There are some weird Force things that are being explored that I'm really anxious to learn more about, that I was just like, hold on, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So
I just want to echo your cinematography comment and say that they did some, I wonder how they did some of these things, because we were talking about how this is the Rashomon episode where we see things from another perspective. I wonder if they filmed both perspectives at the same time to get the same take on them, or if they went back and did a second shooting of these things. Or
continuity's sake, it would make the most sense if they did everything at once. That way they didn't have to worry about matching up shots and everything.
It would add dramatically to the difficulty of making sure that the two shots are both acted well, shot well, everything. But
right.
I mean, it's Disney. They have more money than God. They could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a filmmaker. It makes sense to me that that's how they would have done it. However, there might have been other limiting reasons why they couldn't, or whatever. Okay, so we're gonna get into some spoilers. So
by some, we mean all.
Yeah, we're gonna spoil everything. Actually, if you've not seen the show, it just came out last night. Go ahead and take a break. Go and watch it. Come back and let us know what you thought in the comments. At the end of this, we'll be reading some of your comments that I asked for on social media earlier today. So there's still time to get those in. Go check us out on Facebook, or just put it in the chat of this live stream. And I think we knew this episode was coming, so it was no surprise that the episode starts off 16 years ago. We're back on Brendok, and it's like, oh my god, we're back on Brendok. Everyone's gonna freak out about the lesbian witches or whatever, which, by the way, I think only 2 of them are lesbians. I think the rest of them are probably varying sexualities.
The rest of them can just live their lives however they want,
but I'm pretty sure they exist in everyone's minds as just
the lesbian Force witches.
Yeah, they're just all lesbians, even if they're not,
which if they are, good for them.
Yeah. Power to the lesbians. The dark side. That was a joke. I, a gay man, would never attack the dark side of the lesbians. Both my sister-in-laws are lesbians, so I wonder if they're witches. I should ask them.
They might be Wiccans.
They could. One of them is weird. You're right. It very well could be. The other one works on a farm. I don't know what that makes. So anyway, turns out like Saul and the gang. So it's like Saul and Kelnaka and Tommen, who throughout this entire episode just having progressively a worse time.
Yeah.
And
Indara.
Indara, who really does just play Trinity, I think. That very
extent,
like,
yeah.
which works, right? Because she's playing a Jedi and she's supposed to be dispassionate and everything. Though there are some moments in this episode where I was like, "What the fuck is up with Indara?" Because
the Jedi, they are a take on Jedi.
Yeah, and so this whole thing is like a the road to the road to hell is paved with good intentions and everything. It's kind of like that whole thing. They weren't lying. So when they show up in the previous episode and they're like, we didn't know anyone was alive here, and Anastasia is like, oh, that's bullshit. Like that they were being serious. Yeah. They didn't know anyone was alive there.
They got sent out there to like take soil samples.
Yeah, they're doing like field work. Yeah,
because apparently this planet didn't have anything alive on it 100 years ago.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that in just a second because that was a really, really big story thing that's taken from the High Republic books. That we'll talk about when we get there. They are very interested in even like the most stupid forms of what we like. Saul's like, oh, it's a weed, and he like puts it in his little box and everything.
3 of them are very interested. Torben just wants to fucking go home.
Tom, I went through my entire notes without even trying to be funny, just typing his name as Tommen because Dean Charles Chapman
that's what you know
exists in my mind as
sweet baby Tom.
Yeah. I can still feel the same way about him a little bit. I feel really bad for him. But yeah, let's just say that he is me when I was like 14, though his character's not 14, but when I was 14 and
you
like
just wanted to go home and play video
my
games.
Grandparents would be like, oh, we're going to go camping all weekend in their camper. And I'm like, oh, fuck me. Please no. That's pretty much him. Yeah. Right. So, later that night they like do a campfire and they like roast some marshmallows and shit and they hang out. And Tommen is still like, for the love of Christ, can we please go home? And
there's nothing out here but weeds, and trees, and fucking grass.
And Kelnaka is cooking.
Yeah.
Who takes personally when you don't eat food that he makes.
Yeah.
They're eating, by the way. They're eating. I can't remember what he calls them, but I know that they are little animals that we've seen in the in the prequel trilogy before. Like, do you remember the pod race scene in episode 1? And Jabba's like sitting up in his thing, and he like flicks one of those animals off. He gets bored and just murders one of them, and like flicks them off the thing. That's what they're eating.
Okay.
So Tommen just wants to go home to Coruscant, and it turns out they've been there for 7 weeks, which I totally get. Like he's probably just over it. Who the fuck knows how long he's been wearing that one robe, right? So
it's probably pretty ripe.
Yeah, 7 weeks. They haven't found much other than just a bunch of like trees and yeah. So turns out, Indara does a little bit of like exposition. Brendok was one of the planets affected by the Legacy Run hyperspace disaster, which is the event that kicks off the entire High Republic series, which is a big freighter carrying a bunch of people and a bunch of cargo was just going through hyperspace, minding its own fucking business, and it is attacked in hyperspace by the Nihil. And it explodes. As a result, the pieces of it drop out of hyperspace but are still practically going the speed of light.
Yeah.
And start crashing into planets.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, and it is horrific, actually. And as a result, a lot of planets were just decimated. Like, lots of people died in this whole thing. And Brendok, we learn, is one of the planets. So 100 years ago, it was devoid of life. And within 100 years, all of a sudden, like there's green shit, and that shouldn't happen within 100 years. That's like over like maybe a couple million years, like things kind of like start growing there again. at least without like some kind of intervention or something.
Hint, hint.
Yeah. So Indara does a little Qui-Gon Jinn quote I noticed, where she tells Tom, and she's like, "Don't center on your anxieties." And I was like, I remember that part of the Phantom Menace. That one was for us, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So Saul's like, let me exposit a little bit more. We are looking for a vergence, which is also a thing everyone remembers from episode 1. And he explains as a concentration of force energy surrounded around a location, right? Mm-hmm. And it seems like the Jedi are still looking for vergences in episode 1 because Qui-Gon drags Anakin in front of the council and was like, I found a vergence. It's not around a place. It's just this kid.
Yeah.
And the Jedi are like, is that how that works? Can it be a person? And Qui-Gon's like, have I literally ever been wrong at anything?
It is.
Yeah. And so it was interesting that, like, I think maybe the whole vergence thing is a thing that maybe happens kind of often that they kind of investigate. I think that the prophecy that Qui-Gon was really obsessed with had to do with a vergence. And he was like, oh, turns out it wasn't a place. It was this fucking boy. Mm-hmm. So the next day, they get back to work. And Saul and Indara have this chat. And it kind of points to Saul has this tendency to project onto other people. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, so Tommen's really unbalanced and having a bad time. And he's really bored and hates all of this. And Dara's like, are you sure that you're not unbalanced and you're not bored and you're not hating all of this? And Saul's like, well, fuck you. and walks off.
Saul has a lot of empathy, I think.
Yeah, I think.
And because of that, he sort of projects his feelings onto other people.
Yeah. They're talking about Tommen, but
Tormund.
Like, Indara's like, you haven't been to Jedi teacher school, and I have. And
this is why you don't have a Padawan, by the way.
My teacher philosophy is, I want him to discover things for himself and not just have me tell them. And Saul's like, well, that's fucking stupid. And she's like, well, that's why you're not a teacher.
It's a pretty good philosophy, actually.
I think this is a little ironic since Saul literally ends up being like kind of a big deal teacher at the temple and everything, and ends up having a Padawan. They need to do some exploring. Oh, by the way, this entire time, every time I see Kelnaka carrying around his metal detector, I just laugh because it's like just a regular ass metal detector from like Earth, right? You can like see the brand name on it. And
I'm sure they put some Greeblies on it, but it's just a metal detector.
Saul's gonna go and check this one thing out that they haven't been to yet, and he finds the Bunta tree from that earlier episode, where May is like torturing a butterfly, and
it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, why are you always? This is why no one likes you.
Why are you like this?
And we see the whole thing from Saul's perspective.
He sort of creeps up and hides behind a rock. He's like, ooh, what's that?
Which, by the way, imagine seeing this from Saul's perspective, which is that one of these girls is trying to murder a living thing, and Osha is like, no, don't do that.
Can you chill?
And so I'm sure to Saul, maybe this is why he was like, oh, so Osha's the good one, and May's the one that is the bad one, right? So he tries to call Indara up.
Even more so, imagine being him. You've been on this planet for 2 months at this point.
You're just bored.
You haven't seen any signs of intelligent life. And then you see these 2 Force-using children fucking around with a butterfly.
Yeah, it is like out of nowhere. Like it would have been a big deal if he'd just seen like an animal or something. Be like, holy shit, there's like real life here. But he's like, oh no, these kids are speaking basic, and they can use the Force. So what the fuck is happening here?
Big fucking deal.
He tries to call Indara to relay exactly that, and like there's no cell service. Of course there's not. So he's like, you know what? I better go follow them and check this shit out on my own. And this is like the part in the episode where like Coral takes him back to the compound.
Yep.
Saul can't get through the front door, so he just climbs the mountain that it's on, which I thought was like, all right, like that's a man who sees a challenge and is like, I can take care of this.
Fine.
I'll climb the mountain.
When the door is closed, you climb a fucking mountain.
We see a couple of things that we remember seeing from the episode, but from Saul's point of view. One of them is the training session with Anastasia, where he misses the innocuous part that would put everything into context, where she's like, oh, it's the thread and all this other shit. All he sees is child abuse, more or less, right? Is Anastasia like pushing her kids over with the Force.
It's like, hey, quit fighting.
Yeah.
Now block this.
Yeah. And he's just like, what is like? We are calling space DCFS right the fuck now.
Yeah.
I do like that there's a moment where like Coral is like, I think I smell a Jedi or somebody. I smell a non-lesbian. Yeah. And she goes to like check it out, and she looks around, and Saul's already gone at that point. They also do the ritual thing. So there's like the ascension ritual, right? But then there's like the pre-ascension ritual that they have, where it's just the women.
Yeah.
And I wanted to look back in the episode and see if there's like an angle of where he was hanging out to see if you can actually see him or not. But he's like hanging out, like watching him and stuff. So Saul reports back to the Jedi. And he's like, I think they're witches. And Tommen's like fucking Night Sisters. And we learned an interesting thing about Night Sisters, which is I guess they don't have kids. Which
okay.
I guess I'm not really sure how that works, how they can indoctrinate people.
Well, they just steal other people's kids.
Right, but they said they don't train children.
I don't know.
And as we know, every good religion must indoctrinate children or the religion dies.
Yeah.
So, like, automatically, Tommen is like, okay, I wanted to go home before, and that was before we knew witches were here.
I really want
So can we, Indara, being, the I guess the good Jedi she is like, we should probably, like, check in with the council. And Saul is like, Indara, listen to me very carefully. Fuck the council. I think these two girls are in trouble.
I think they're in danger because their quote unquote mother was slapping them around with the Force.
Yeah, I saw her beat them with a belt. It was not a good thing. And Dara's like, okay, well, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go.
Let's get more information. Yeah. Let's feel this out. Maybe talk to him a little bit.
They show up to the door. And so they're like, oh yeah, okay, so we can't get through the door. And so they're like, Kalmaka, fucking hotwire this. And he's like, oh, I thought you'd never asked. And he gets them in. And Dara wants to go in alone at first. And Tommen's like, you idiot. There are like probably, I don't know, I haven't seen them, but I assume 50 or more witches.
And Dara says, if we all go in, it'll be perceived as a threat.
And he's like, yeah. Yeah, because there are 50 of them. That would be okay. And she's like, okay, you know what? I don't want to waste time arguing with my own people. Yeah. Let's just go in. We were supposed to be in bed like 2 hours ago. I just want to go back home. So you know what? Everyone, let's go. So they all walk in. We see the earlier scene from the earlier episode from their perspective, right? So the Jedi come in and all the witches are already like hiding the kids and everything, and everyone's staring at them when they walk in, and it's a little eerie because like the Jedi walk in, and this is a detail I guess I didn't notice the first time I saw this scene, like in the earlier episode, but like Coral has archers like right there. Yeah. As they walk through the door, like ready to put him down.
Yeah, those archers were there, and Mother Anastasia, like before the Jedi came out, Mother Anastasia told him, "Hey, don't like have your bows pointed at them because they'll take that as a threat." Yeah. So just
also show a little bit of trigger discipline.
Yeah.
We find out that the mind fuckery with Tommen started way earlier than we thought, and she was in his mind pretty much the second they get there, right? Yeah. And she tells him a little bit about where she's like, your parents are losers and you're from fucking Bonadan, which I think is a planet that's from like one of the really early Legends books, and like a real like a Han Solo one or something, like a real minor one.
Good deep cut.
Yeah.
She's like, look, I know you just want to go home. Like, I know it, you know it. Just fucking say I want to go home. Yeah. And I can help you.
She really knows how to center in on his like all of his insecurities and shit. And she mentions his like natural desires, and she's like, boy, I knew you haven't masturbated in like 7 weeks. Like,
I mean, how could you? You're surrounded by
no privacy and everything. I took the natural desires thing. In my mind, and I don't know if it even matters or if this will end up being true or not, but it makes sense to me that maybe he has like a crush back at the temple.
Maybe.
That he's just like tired of being here and wants to be there, right? And because she mentions that like natural desire thing like a couple of times.
I mean, it could be as simple as like a more Maslowian hierarchy thing. Like, you just want to be in bed at home.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want
playing
to be
Xbox.
Yeah.
So she asks him if he wants to escape, and she's like, "Hey, look, I can help you." And so finally, Tommen's like, "You know what? Yeah, I want to go home." And
she's like, "Okay, I thought I'd never ask."
Black eyes. Yeah. And and then everything else goes.
Well, she tells him kneel, and
Right.
he does, both in his mind and in reality.
Right. And then the rest of that happens the way that we saw in the earlier episode. Everyone gets real tense, right?
Mother says, like, "Look, if you want your Padawan back, you need to get the fuck out of here."
Yeah. So they're waiting for the girls to show up for their force test. And Tommen is really fucked up from this possession. He's like, why am I still on this planet? I don't want to be a Jedi anymore, I don't think. We see May purposely fail her test.
I feel like... Oh, never mind. Go on.
And Saul catches on pretty quick. He's like, okay, she's obviously failing the test.
She was told to fail.
Yeah.
Well, let's try something different with it.
Well, before they do that, they kind of ask, Indara asks May about her symbol in her head. Mm-hmm. And was like, why don't you tell me a little bit more about this whole weird thing that you're a part of? Yeah. And she mentions something about, she's like, oh, everyone must be sacrificed. And Saul and Indara are like, come again? Did you say everyone has to be sacrificed? And this is a line that comes up a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And I think it's significant to the story probably. So Saul is like, let me try a different approach. And he lures Osha in with the promise of friends, right? Mm-hmm. Which felt a little manipulative then, but still feels really manipulative. Mm-hmm. And Indara more or less confirms, by the way, that this entire test is a waste of time, right? Because she's too old. Mm-hmm. So, like, she passes the test, obviously. And Saul's like, great, we can take her. And she's like, no. Like, she's like 30 years old, Saul. Like, we can't take her with us. Like, what? And Saul's like, what are we doing then? Like, I don't understand what this is for. And then he's mentioned something about, like, I'm pretty sure that she's supposed to be my Padawan, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then you can stop bitching at me about how I don't have a Padawan and shit.
And Dara's like, okay, look, I'll call the council. We'll let them make the decision.
Yeah. And she's like, I'll let you know what they say. And when she said that, I'm like, okay, maybe she asked the council. That's perfectly possible. But I think that there's at least a chance she didn't at all. And just like, it's all they said no. Just stop asking me about this, please. So it turns out they did say no. Mm-hmm. And the Jedi Council was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You've already made more trouble than you were supposed to.
You were just supposed to look at the fucking weeds and trees.
Yes.
Stop talking to the witches.
Yeah.
Just do your fucking job.
Come back home, but leave Tommen there so he has to like stay on this planet for longer. And like Tommen is like, oh, for fuck's sake. So there's a plot twist. Mm-hmm. Tommen takes blood samples from both of them when they come for the test.
Yep.
And it turns out that they both have the exact same M count.
They have extremely high M count. They have the same like symbiotes or something,
which is what the M count measures.
Yeah,
they have exactly the same, which does not happen even in identical twins. They have different numbers. Yeah. And so this shouldn't be possible without some kind of manipulation. And Saul has a theory, which is that they've taken one consciousness and split it into two people, which already is horrifying to think about and sounds like some weird Sith bullshit anyway. Mm-hmm.
But that, combined with their high M counts, could explain the Vergence thing?
Yeah. It also, like, it makes sense, by the way, this, like, two consciousness, or one consciousness into two bodies thing makes sense because, like, they have the whole nursery rhyme about always one, born as two, or whatever. So, okay, Tommen just passes this line where he just becomes irrational, right? Mm-hmm. And he's just like muttering. He's like, they walk into the speeder to him. So he's fucking playing with these fucking kids, and they're like, look, where are you going?
The kids are the Virgins. We're just gonna grab them, take them back to the council.
Yeah, Tommen's like, I figured it out. They're the Virgins. I'll get the proof. We'll go home. Okay. And they're like, no.
Like, no, it's not okay.
He's
too
like,
bad. Goes drive away.
I didn't ask. he gets on his bike, he fucks off. And Dara's like, oh my God, we're just supposed to be looking at flowers, guys. I don't understand what the problem is.
Go chase him.
Yeah, which, by the way,
we'll get him the ship.
If I were in Dara, I'd be like, Saul, stay here. Because I don't know if you're making anything better. You're just kind of like... So she sends Saul after him, and she's like, Kalnaka and I'll get on the ship, and we'll fly him. And Saul catches up to Tommen, because like gets to the door, and he's like, oh shit, I can't remember how to open this. And so like they stop and they have a conversation, and meanwhile Anastasia discusses Osha leaving with the rest of the witches, and it's not a popular idea. I thought maybe they'd be a little split about it, but like the whole group is like, no, man, like this is our future.
Yeah, they're being the writers, I mean, are being very vague about what exactly Osha and May are supposed to be and supposed to
because they're supposed to be leaders, like they're future like they're supposed to start leading.
They're supposed to be the leaders, but when Dara hears this, you're like fucking 12. How can you lead anybody? And May doesn't know the answer to that.
Yeah, like
this is one of those big mysteries that like I feel like they intend to explore in a future season, because like we do not know everything about this.
I thought maybe at first that they're like doing a thing where they're just transferring their consciousness into new bodies as they go along, but Anastasia and Coral seem to love them like children, which would be really weird, right? And so Anastasia is like, look, like this is what Osha wants, and I'm not trying to pull the mom card every fucking time, but like she's my kid, right? Meanwhile, like Mother Coral,
I think you glossed over it, but Torben and Sol, when they have their conversation before they go climb up the mountain again, Sol's like, look, these kids are in danger. We need to get them the fuck out.
Well, yeah, it's because he senses what's about to happen. Is like Saul sees in like a vision or something, and knows that they're not safe, which is why he's like, oh, we have to break in. Yeah. But Coral takes May and is like, okay, I need you to get real mad and stop this from happening. Don't tell your mom.
Just tap into a little bit of that dark side, and let's make this happen.
And so the whole thing happens with she locks Osha in her room, and we find out that she wasn't trying to set the door on fire. She was just trying to burn Osha's notebook.
Well, first May like busts the door locks so that you can't open the door from within. She goes, hey, ain't none of you getting the fuck out. Let's beat up some Jedi. Yeah. And then she goes up and burns Osha's notebook.
At this point, Saul is like, uh-oh, I think something might be really happening. And so he and Tommen decide, he's like, I found a really great way up the mountain. And Tommen's like, we're going to climb a fucking mountain. Are you kidding me?
So I was like, I already did this. It's fine. Don't worry about
it. It only takes 4 hours. It's fine. So May gets a little freaked out over the giant fire that she's caused.
Yes, this is the first big divergence from the earlier episode.
Which is that you think that May was...
Yeah, like the first time we saw this, we thought May was doing it on purpose. Like she was like had this urge to kill Osha or something. Yeah. This time we see that May just like lit the notebook on fire and just kind of got surprised and dropped everything.
Yeah, which I mean,
understandable.
Yeah, like a kid with a and I'm like that that fire. They do a really good job with the VFX with this, because when she drops it. When you look at like the fire is burning, but you also see the fuel, because I think the thing that she was holding was like a
torch or
it had a bunch of fuel in it, and so it just got out of control too fast, right? And so she runs for help, right? And she's like, "Mom, I'm sorry, I burnt that house down." So Tommen and Saul meet up with Anastasia in the courtyard, and by the way, Coral is like ready to throw down. Yeah, she's like, "I've been spoiling for a fight."
There's a bunch of witches with bows and arrows.
Like everyone's ready.
Like,
Saul's like, look, and this will end up mattering a whole bunch when we look back at this and laugh. I'm here with noble intentions. And
it's like, did you honestly expect that to work?
Yeah.
Like, do you think they give a shit what your intentions are?
He asks how the girls are created. Anastasia finds a way not to answer. And instead it was like, so I'm going to tell you about these noble intentions. Here in about 130 years, your entire order is going to die. Good job being a Jedi. And right around then, May shows up, calling for help. And then shit starts to get kind of weird. So everyone has their own like irrational response to what's happening.
Yeah.
First, Mother Anastasia decides to turn into the smoke monster from Lost.
Yes.
Just that she's like, oh, someone's in danger. And Saul is like, that's a smoke monster. I think I'll hit it with my lightsaber.
I'm going to stab it. Yes.
Tommen and Coral are staring at each other, and they're like, you know what? Here comes a girl. I guess we'll just fucking fight each other, right? And like the archers start firing and shit. And Tommen's got some pretty fucking good moves, by the way. Saul just straight up like impales Anastasia, and as she's dying, she's like, you motherfucker,
you fucking dumbass,
I was gonna let her go. Like, she chose you. I just want you to know that, just as a little guilt trip, as I'm dying, she chose you. So good job, good guy Jedi.
Where are your noble intentions now?
So Coral threatens to, she's like, oh, you shouldn't have brought him here because he's so easily mind controlled. And Tommen's like, excuse me, I have fortified my mind.
I think you've skipped something because Coral like goes berserk and starts attacking Soul.
Yeah,
and Soul like at first just does the dodging thing.
He doesn't. I think he's like, I think I might have accidentally killed someone in cold blood.
He feels bad about it.
Yeah.
He's trying to not make things worse.
To be fair, if I was standing there and someone just turned into a smoke monster and I had a lightsaber, I would probably swing at it just in case.
Maybe.
Just in case. Like, that had to have been terrifying. But yeah, there's a nice little fight between them. And
and she screams at him, fucking fight back. And he like takes an opportunity to like cut the blade off her stab. And I think that's when they start saying, hey, you shouldn't have brought him.
Yeah, and Tommen, who is like, oh, that shit's not going to work on me again.
I was meditating for like 5 seconds early in the episode. I'm totally...
It took me 5 hours, but like, I'm ready for this. And she's like, oh, you sweet summer child. I was not talking about you. And there's this terrifying shot of Kelnaka standing on the stairs in the dark. And then like he like comes into the light and you're like, uh-oh, he's got black eyes. Oh, no.
Yeah.
And so thus ensues the Kelnaka versus Saul and Tommen fight sequence. And it turns out that a Wookiee, first of all, just on their own are terrifying.
Yes.
But with a lightsaber and the Force is like, send him on every fight the Jedi go on.
They do a fantastic job with this scene. They do a great job selling how much raw power.
Yeah, he just knocks Tommen right the fuck over.
He's just knocking him over, swinging back and forth.
Yeah. He fucks Tommen's face up, by the way. And he I think he grabs Saul by like the throat, or was it Tommen?
He grabs Tommen by the neck, like pins him against the wall. Is about to swing. Tommen is like
gets his lightsaber on
it.
And shit. Yeah, and like
Saul's like, dude, chill the fuck out. We're friends.
So Indara shows up and breaks. Okay, so she does this thing where she's like, okay, I'm gonna mind meld with the Wookiee.
Yes.
And then I guess senses all the witches that are like,
because there are some shots of the witches like all holding hands and swinging,
kumbaya and shit. Yeah. And I guess Indara just kills all of them through the Force.
That is what I took from it.
This feels like a dark side power that she didn't learn from the Jedi.
Maybe.
Maybe she is dead. Maybe May killed her at the beginning of the show and she never ends up coming back. Fine. That's fine. I would not necessarily be surprised after what I saw in this episode if Indara didn't end up being some sinister player that we find later on that maybe perhaps isn't dead or had some kind of involvement somewhere in something. Because she kills every one of those witches with the Force, just with her fucking brain, which is like, how do you do that? So also that's where Coral's like, oh, I guess I'll turn into a smoke monster too. And she just fucks off. And so now we know why her body isn't with all the other witches. Excuse me. My allergies have been crazy all day today.
'Tis the season.
Yeah. So we see the scene where
so Osha got out through the tunnel and she's running around.
Yeah.
And
they do the catwalk thing.
And like, Osha, May, what did you do? What did you do?
Yeah. What we didn't see is the fact that Saul has to make a choice.
Yeah, so those catwalks are collapsing, and Saul like reaches out with the Force to try to stop them, but he realizes
can't hold them both.
He can only hold one of them up.
Yep. and so he just lets May fall. Like, which is
He's
as
like, oh, okay, look, one of you was torturing a butterfly, the other was telling the other to stop torturing the butterfly.
yeah.
I think the second one will make a better Jedi.
Yeah, let the other one die.
Yeah.
Well, will the universe care? Probably not. Hopefully this decision won't come back to bite me in the ass later. So yeah, he lets May fall to presumably her death and rescues Osha, and they deal with the fallout of this complete disaster on the ship on the way home, right? And Dara basically orders them to lie to the council.
Like, okay, we're going to tell them the truth. And the truth is that May lit a fire and it killed her entire family, but we were able to rescue Osha.
Yeah. And then leave all the other very important details out of our report.
Yep.
And Saul at first doesn't want to. And they get kind of physical with one another. We're like, and Dara looks like she's like, I finally had it. I'm going to whoop your ass. And she's like, would you stop and think for a second that you went through all this fucking trouble. All these people are dead. We've got this girl here. You are all she has. And you're just going to go and turn yourself into the Jedi Council? Like, what the fuck happens to her? Which also is one of those things where I was like, damn, dude. Like, that's manipulative as fuck.
This show is doing a very good job of showing the Jedi as the sort of flawed human beings that they are.
Or, yeah, beings, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, Soul has a huge heart, which is one of his biggest strengths and also one of his biggest weaknesses, because it drives him to...
He's very passionate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Passionate. He cares a lot about people, which are two things that are good in most circumstances, but in a Jedi lead to some issues.
I think it might lead to some... I mean, these are all qualities that can be used against him by someone like Kamir as well.
Very much so.
And I've wondered since episode 5 if Saul isn't the one that ends up being the Acolyte.
Possibly.
Because that would hurt quite a bit. That they've made us fall in love with Saul so much because his actor is so warm and caring. And he really, like, he does have good intentions. Like, he's not trying to be a bad guy. He's actively trying to do the right thing. It's just, like, he's trying to control a situation because he has the arrogance to think that because he's a Jedi, he can control the outcome.
Yeah.
And he obviously can't. Like, no one can, right? But because he's a Jedi, they all think they can. And, like, he's a good guy, and I think that would hurt quite a bit if they got us to fall in love with him and like him a whole bunch, and he doesn't end up being a Sith at some point, like maybe before Plagueis or something. Or maybe they change Plagueis's fucking species and Saul is just Plagueis.
Maybe. And to a lesser extent, the other major flaw that this is showing us in the Jedi is how susceptible they are to sort of political maneuvering. Not just
that's all they think about.
Yeah, not just
that's all they think about is like, what is the political ramification? Even like Vernestra, fucking
Vernestra
16 years later,
is the perfect poster child for this. But we see Indara here is like saying like, look, we'll just cover this up. No one will ask questions.
Yeah,
it'll be fine.
We're Jedi. There will be no consequences either. Which also is like, how can you be so fucking cold? There are so many dead people back on that planet, and you killed most of them. Which is like, if I were Saul, I would have been like, I only killed one of them. You killed 12.
It was like 30.
So are you worried about Osha? Or are you worried about you? Because, you know, the second I go in there, I'm going to be like, I think Indara thought bombed everyone.
She did what?
Yeah. Yoda's like, not again. So yeah, next week is the season finale. If I didn't already know that they were at least trying to make other seasons happen, I'd be worried that they're not going to wrap this up in time. But
they cannot possibly wrap up all the plot lines
right.
and answer all the questions unless it's like an hour and a half long episode.
I think it's going to be another 40-minute one. Though knowing that they kind of designed this to be a multi-season story, it's like, okay, so they'll leave us on a cliffhanger. And
I think this is where we are going to end up with our titular Acolyte.
I think I could say tits.
Titular.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Like, why would I end up with tits after this?
Whether that ends up being Soul or Osha or someone else, who knows?
I know Leslie Headland said in an interview that we do see 2 Sith in this season. So I think we're going to meet someone else. And it depends on how much they want to go with James Lucino's Plagueis book, right? Which is pretty much the only book that really explores the Sith right before episode 1. So they can take from that, and they could do the Darth Tenebrous thing, which I would love, because just the idea.
Who doesn't love a Biff Sith?
Yeah, it just like, well, first of all, it's a nice wordplay.
Yeah.
But also, like,
second of all, they're the guys who play the goofy jizz music.
yeah, and it's like having one of those motherfuckers be a Sith Lord. That's like Darth Jar Jar level. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's pretty neat. So they could keep that or just do away with it and just invent some other entirely new character, which would be fine, honestly, because there's one book that has Darth Tenebrous in it. He doesn't last very long. Fucking Plagueis kills him, right, on their Cortosis planet. And I think Plagueis is the character they can't get rid of because he's mentioned in the movie.
He is bedrock canon.
Yeah. And we don't know anything about him officially, other than he was probably he's probably Palpatine's master, and he probably killed him. So we like it. I know in Legends he's not human, but he very well could be. And I'm not sure if it would even really detract from his character if he ended up being human or not.
Not really.
Yeah. I would like to see them do more aliens for stuff, but you know that shit's expensive, I guess. Chris says, "May the Force be with you, Daniel and Chris. I hope you are both having a good night."
Yeah, it's all right.
It is. Yeah, I think we're doing okay. I'm gonna pull up some of your comments.
Your comments, your thoughts, your theories, your complaints. Hopefully, not too many of those.
No, that's the thing. We talked about this last week. Did you see this picture of Sunfire with the?
Oh, I'm sad now.
We'll talk about that here in just a minute. Yeah, I know. I was really depressed after that episode. So this is a really good example of this 147 interactions on this post, right? Which for us is like really good.
Yeah.
A vast majority, I mean 99% of them being positive. This show isn't hated by 83% of the population.
No.
That's false. That is not true. That is not the case. I understand that there are probably a lot of people that don't like it, but it is absolutely not a vast majority of humankind.
Yeah.
I do not accept that. Jacob says, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Anakin Skywalker voice with a shrug emoji.
Yeah.
All this episode did was just show what I already knew since 2005 onwards, that the Jedi were evildoers in the whole story. It sounds like a Sith sympathizer to me.
Disagree.
I think the Jedi as an organization, which by the way, they talk about this in the episode where Anastasia is like, why would I want my kid raised by an institution and not a family? I think the Jedi as an institution is deeply flawed and is immoral. But I think that they're
individual Jedi.
I think a lot of them are just like Saul, and they want to do good.
They have the best of intentions, probably more power than any individual person should have.
Right. And then you get, every once in a while, you get the random Qui-Gon Jinn, who is like, if all the Jedi were like this, it would probably work out a lot better. Because you know that Qui-Gon Jinn wouldn't be like, oh, only I can fix this, right? He'd be like,
let's get some help.
yeah. Let's play a quick game, by the way. Let's play, what would Jedi we know do in a situation, like if they were in this situation instead of Saul and Tom?
Okay.
Anakin. Everyone would be dead.
Yes.
Right?
Every single one of the witches would be cut in half.
Yeah. And like Obi-Wan would have been too distracted by something else to notice it.
Hello there.
And like they'd pull Anakin.
Now, Obi-Wan would come out of the elevator and say, hello there.
Yeah.
And probably flirt with a witch or something. I don't know.
Yeah. He would show up to the council. Mace Windu would be like, why are all the witches dead? And he was like, well, they attacked me.
Okay.
See you on the next one, right? Qui-Gon Jinn. I don't think that there is a chance in hell that Qui-Gon Jinn jumps to conclusions about. I think I see him being very interested by the whole virgins thing, but I cannot see Qui-Gon Jinn being like, I am going to take these children from their parents, especially since they're too old to be trained as Jedi anyway, and they're not like offering them up or whatever.
Well, that didn't exactly stop Qui-Gon when it came to Anakin, the too old thing.
He explained the situation to Shmi, and it was like, your son is extraordinarily special, and I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be a Jedi. And Shmi was like, yeah, I kind of figured, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he got at least a soft consent from Shmi before he took Anakin, right? And to be fair, he did try to free both of them.
Yeah.
But Watto was an asshole.
Yeah. I think Qui-Gon asks more questions and tries to learn from the witches about exactly what May and Osha are.
I see Qui-Gon not being threatened by the witches at all.
Yeah.
I think because that they went in there like, oh, witches, everyone watch out. I think Qui-Gon's like, yeah, weird shit happens in the galaxy all the time. What the fuck ever. You guys got any like good opium tea or like? I think Yoda would probably have a similar interaction because we've seen Yoda in the comics discover.
I think Yoda behaves exactly the way Indara did.
Really?
Not like up until when Torben breaks down. I think Yoda's like, no, we're not doing that. Let's just get back on the ship. We're not dealing with this.
Yeah, I think he...
I don't think he like thought murders all the witches.
Yeah.
But I think he never lets it come to that point.
I can't imagine Yoda would do that. I hope not. I think that like we've seen Yoda deal with weird groups of people that he doesn't understand in the comics. And his general go-to thing is let's hang out and smoke a pipe and talk about it. Like he literally does that in a comic, right? So I don't know. I see him also probably trying to maybe gather more information before he just jumps. I guess that being like Yoda, he'd have the wisdom to know that maybe all the pieces aren't there for me to see directly. Mace Windu.
Everyone is dead.
Everyone dies. Yeah. Steve Wilder says,
Kiadi Mundi. Everyone is pregnant.
Everyone's pregnant, yeah. Everyone's no longer a lesbian. Magically. We don't know how it happened. Steve says, I like that there's some sense to how each of the Jedi progressed after the events on Brendok. Yeah, that's true. Everyone's got their own way of dealing with it.
It just made sense to me that Torben fucking goes into the meditation for years and years because he doesn't want to get his mind poked.
Well, I think... I don't think
Kalnaka goes and lives in the woods so that he can't be a threat to anybody.
Yeah, and be away from everyone. So like we know for a fact that Torben took the Barish vow, which is it's an act of penance, and I don't think they have to say to everyone why. I think they just like go off and think about what they did.
Yeah,
and that's what he's doing is that he's in that vow. I think a lot of the time they're like usually vows of silence or solitude or something. I don't think we'll be getting everything answered in one final episode. Season 2! !
Yep.
I want a new. Gregor says I want a new TV show or movie that has a picture of Indara and Torben. I think that'd be pretty cool. Yeah. I would really love for Carrie Ann Moss to come back. I think she's criminally underused in this show, and she's an actor with good range.
Yeah, she's really good.
I would like to see her like do something like kind of cool. Casey says there should have been only one flashback episode in the show at the at the same point, but like 12 minutes longer because it would have contained both sides. We talked about this a little bit about how
I don't think that works narratively.
It pours water on the conflict a little bit between.
It gives us too much information about Soul and the other Jedi's motivations.
Yeah, like because you're wondering like one of my first thoughts was like, why the fuck is Tommen doing the Barish vow?
Oh. Like,
what the fuck did that guy do? He has such a likable face. Well, I mean, he had such a likable face. Now he's fucked up.
The side of it that wasn't clawed up. Yeah.
WG Nix says, did anyone else get a feeling that May and Osha are the same person but split into two?
Very possible.
I think Saul got the feeling, and he said so directly in the show. That they will join one as the conclusion, the rhyme they sing, and just how opposite they seem to me. That's my speculation, and I'm not sticking to it. Way to hedge your bets. How could you possibly be wrong? Michael Hooker. This is like, by the way, do you know why we call hookers hookers?
Why?
In the Civil War.
Oh yeah, hookers girls.
Yeah, there was a general called Hooker who just had a bunch of fucking.
He just recruited a bunch of prostitutes.
So they call them hookers.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's related to General Hooker.
Possibly.
Michael, let us know in the comments if you ever hear this. Michael says, did not like that episode. Could have been done in a 15-minute flashback narration. Hopefully next week we'll reveal. I am vehemently against narrations in any kind of visual media. I think it's a terrible way to exposit information. Gil.
Okay.
Gui, perhaps, if it's French. Haha. I never thought that some product of Star Wars finished with a modern... Oh, we have to talk about that.
Oh, boy.
Okay. So the end credits has like a pop song, right? I like the song.
Mm-hmm. It's fine.
It's a fine song.
It's a little out of place.
I don't know why they put it there. And look, when people take swings in Star Wars, I appreciate it, right? Because
they're trying something new,
and that can
work really well, like the entirety of Andor,
right?
Or it can be a bit of a swing and a miss sometimes,
like this. And this was a big whiff, I think.
Yeah. It doesn't really fit with the overall vibe of the show and really of Star Wars.
Yeah. It just makes me wonder, do they have a Yamaha electric piano in the Star Wars universe? Because that's what it sounded like, But like I said, it was the song was fine.
Yeah.
And I would listen to it on its own, but you just had 40 minutes of John Williams-y sounding Star Wars music. Maybe this is something you release in some kind of supplemental thing or something. I wasn't a big fan of it. Mark says, yeah, it was just the third episode with about 3 minutes of new footage. That's what a Rashomon kind of thing is, though. It's the same events from a different perspective.
And we see new truths, and we see that some narrators are unreliable.
Yeah. Yoda BBY ABY says, that fight between possessed Kalnaka and Torben/Saul was epic. Oh my god, I could watch that over and over. And the Black Smoke Force Witches.
Yeah.
Sad about Mother Anastasia.
Yeah.
Saul kind of overreacted on that, I think.
Just a little bit.
This High Republic Jedi Order is doing some wild stuff. Not surprised they didn't see Palpatine coming in 120 years.
Yeah.
Jose says, I also liked how it addressed Qui-Gon Jinn line about sensing a Force virgins around Anakin. They did a lot of like fan service episode 1, I think. And I'll pick one more at random. Kenor, Senior. It's probably Senior actually.
Whatever. What do they say?
Koganada, more like Kogadnada, I would say. The guy that directed it.